the CineSnob Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 327 of the CineSnob Podcast. My name is Cody Villafana, and this week I am joined by Kiko Martinez and the returning Jocelyn Durand. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Great.
Not all of you at once, Jesus Christ.
Ladies first. Hello, haven't you ever heard of that?
Everything's wonderful.
I was trying to be, I believe in equality, so I put it out to everyone because I don't see a difference between.
Well, I did name myself on our stream the token this week.
Yes.
So as token, I will begin by saying great. Everything's been awesome. How are you guys?
Amazing.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Saw some good stuff, I guess.
Oh, you guess. You're showing your hand, tipping your hand a little bit.
I
Little.
think this was one of the best weeks for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. Is that weird?
No, it's not weird. It's, I mean, typically speaking, these best weeks come later in the year.
Right.
So it's nice to have
yeah.
a good one or a decent
Earlier
one
on.
earlier on. As we have been teasing and talking about, we are heading into, and I think officially in the throes of summer movie season, hitting all that glorious IP with a movie this week and over the next like 6 weeks. We're getting stuff that's all either sequels or based on IP. So the original movie is dead as we know it. So there was an original movie we were supposed to cover this week that we teased last week that we decided to skip due to them not screening it. And then I think we just all kind of decided maybe we didn't want to see a movie that was getting trashed by basically everyone who's seen
I
it.
support that decision, but you do know that I wanted to hate watch it a little bit. We're talking about the weekend movie.
Yeah, we're talking about Hurry Up Tomorrow, a movie that currently, if you buy into this sort of thing, last time I checked was sitting at 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty low. Oh, it's up to 15, so it did creep up a bit.
Weekend's mom reviewed it or what?
Yeah, she's a certified.
But I had seen the HBO show in its entirety and not liked it, but had fun watching it. I think he has this particular style that's sort of like so ridiculous that it's fun to watch for me. I found it enjoyable.
So what was it? It was a show before or what?
Yes, so there was a show
The
that
Idol.
he had done, The Idol, thank you, and it was with Lily Rose Depp, and it's basically like a pop star, and she gets this sort of really abusive, I guess you could say, Cody, right? Manipulative boyfriend.
Yeah,
He's
I only watched
very-
the first episode.
It seems
that was enough for me.
It seems very similar to the plot of the new movie. He's kind of crazy from clips that I've seen. In this really particular way, though, that is kind of, I don't know. It's terrible, but it's, for me, interesting to watch and funny because it's really ridiculous. It's like
And
an
he's
11.
he's like a cult leader too, right?
Yeah, in the show, in The Idol, he is this like super charismatic person, and he's like this record producer, and he's kind of like isolating her from all of her, support system and all that. And yeah, I'm not going to say it's good, and I guarantee this new movie he has, I would never call it good. Do I like that particular style of bad? Yes, I do. And I enjoyed every second of The Idol. I thought Lily Rose Depp was wonderful, and it was fun to watch. It was like super, Beverly Hills mansions and this like decadence, like private jets, because she was this like very successful pop star.
And what's the name of the pop star in the show?
Oh God, I don't even remember why.
You don't remember her name?
No, why?
You should.
Oh, it was Jocelyn.
That was good. I
The
like
show
that.
you love so much, huh?
It was funny.
Again, I did not love it. I really enjoyed watching it. And yes, her name happened to also be my name.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, you bet.
Anyway.
Because I want to say that in the movie it was presented that she was like a one-word name pop star. So that was her
Right.
name that she went by.
Oh, nice.
Like Cher,
How could I forget that?
I don't know.
Oh man, but
Yeah,
this
I don't
new
think too many
one
people
looks
can
just bad.
do that. Is go by one name.
Right.
So maybe you should try it
Madonna.
out for a month or so.
Has
see how
there
it
ever
works.
been a movie with Kiko as the lead?
Just that name?
Just
No last name?
Yeah.
I'm sure there has
probably
been.
not.
That's a good question. Or Cody?
Probably.
I think Pedro Almodovar made a movie called Kika with an A,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
The female version?
Close enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so that's why it's missing this week. And
Yes,
well, I'm sure we'll catch up to it whenever it's streaming someday. But for now, before we get to this week's movies, I just have a quick little segment I have to do. Not have to do, get to do, which is a review. So every once in a while, we get sent products, like review copies of at-home discs, as I am still a physical media collector. And so I like to take a look at different things. And this week, the fine folks at Criterion sent me a copy of Anora. This is the 4K version of Anora. So it's a 4K combo pack that has 4K Blu-ray as well as a Blu-ray. Yeah, it's a really great release that I was able to kind of dig through. The movie itself looks great in 4K. One of the things that you get with 4K is like UHD or HDR, which kind of helps with the color spectrum. And as you can see from the cover here, there's a lot of red on this. There's in a segment I'll talk about in a minute. Sean Baker talks a lot about how every scene he tried to include the color red in it, which is nods to several films that are referenced. And the red really pops when watching the movie. It's shot on film, and so the film grain looks really nice. There's a lot of stuff that takes place at night or in dark clubs, and all of that stuff looks really good in the 4K HDR. So the film itself looks great. And then also, with Criterion, one of my favorite things about Criterion is the special features that are packed in. So there's normal special features a booklet that has some essays in it, and then you get your standard features deleted scenes. There's some audition footage in here. There's a Cannes press conference, but there's two features that I really liked. One was kind of a sit-down conversation with both Sean Baker, and then one with Sean Baker and Mikey Madison. And it's like a normal special feature kind of thing, but what makes it really interesting is the level of depth they go into, where Baker kind of breaks down the film and talks about all the references within it and all of his influences, and how he connected with Mikey Madison, and how the movies he gave her to watch to find inspiration from it and stuff like that. I'd be
interested to hear what some of those were.
Yeah, it's a lot of international film. He said that he was heavily inspired by Italian films in particular for Anora. Mm-hmm. And he talks a little bit about the sex work.
What is it? Cabaret? No, the night of Cabiria. There you go. Got it.
Yeah. There you go.
That's right.
He talks a little bit about working with the sex work consultant on the film, and how she helped with everything, and then there's this really cool. It's over an hour long kind of documentary, I guess you could call it, which is basically behind the scenes footage that's shot from iPhones from various crew members, and it just takes place sort of sequentially, almost like a video diary over the course of shooting. And so you get to see a mix of stuff, including watching them rehearse scenes, and you see them in their basic form. You see Sean Baker kind of set up shots. You see them talk through performances. You see all sorts of really cool stuff that is behind the scenes. I actually really like. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff can sometimes be just sort of them talking over the footage, and this is just all raw footage stitched together of the making of the movie. And I think seeing the scenes play out and seeing how they add stuff and all that, just sort of raw and unedited, was really cool. So, if you were a fan of Anora, the multi-Oscar winning film from last year, definitely pick this up whenever you can. Criterion sales happen all the time, or a few times a year at least, at Barnes & Noble and on their website, and then Amazon. So this is definitely one to add to the collection if you like the movie.
I'll pick it up if the orgasms are enhanced.
The orgasms. There's not a whole lot of them in the movie, I don't think. There's
There's not?
a few.
Well, a few's a lot.
Speak for yourself. Oh, sorry, there's a woman present.
Oh, it's okay. I usually.
Oh, you look so unamused by that.
I laugh when things are funny, typically. So.
Oh, okay. All right, tough crowd here.
I do love the cover art, though. I think it's beautiful.
I like that. It's nice.
Well, it's referencing a French film, right, Jocelyn?
Oh, here we go. God, why don't I know it? I mean, I didn't freaking know my name was in another show's title. So, which French film is it referencing?
It's I don't remember.
Off the top of your head?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I do not remember.
God,
I'm trying to look it up.
This.
Maybe
It's
it's French.
okay,
Maybe it's
okay.
Italian. Maybe it's the.
Nights of Cabiria.
Yeah, I can't see. Google's not really helping
That's
me
okay.
out here.
It's okay. You can tell me offline
Yeah.
later.
I will. All right. Well, anything to add before we get to the movies this week?
No review time.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
Here are this week's reviews.
So first up this week, we have Final Destination Bloodlines. Final Destination Bloodlines is the 6th film in the Final Destination film series. The last one was 2011's Final Destination 5. And, right off the bat, it's interesting. I don't know how much the two of you looked at, like, who is behind this movie, but I was kind of surprised by a couple of things. From me personally. So the screenplay is co-written by Laurie Evans Taylor and someone named Guy Busick. Now, Guy Busick is part of the group Radio Silence, and he co-wrote Ready or Not. He co-wrote the Scream reboot. He co-wrote Abigail. He co-wrote the Ready or Not sequel that's being made. So definitely made some really interesting movies. And then the directors are Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein. So these guys directed this movie back in, let me look this up. It was 2018. It was a movie called Freaks. Did either of you see Freaks?
Is it a remake of the original? I've seen the original Freaks, but
No, it is
Okay.
not.
Nope.
Is
Yeah.
Freaks the one with the ice cream truck thing?
Ice cream truck thing.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I'm
Maybe
thinking of
there's the
one
poster
of
they have
us,
is a poster of
one
ice
of us.
cream.
Google,
Oh, really?
Gobble,
Yeah.
Google, gobble.
But it's basically like this movie that is a really low budget, like kind of superhero kind of sci-fi movie about like these people with like powers that are called abnormals. They have like superhuman abilities and they're kind of hunted by the government.
Yeah, that's it.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
So I don't know about you, but I thought that movie was really good, and especially for like a low budget like sci-fi, it's like really dark. It has some like really dark, messed up stuff that happens in it that doesn't usually happen. And I remember watching that movie and thinking like, oh, these guys are like going to get a big job off of this movie. I actually wanted them to get like an X-Men movie because the movie is very similar to like X-Men. And it turns out this is kind of what it led to, which is getting the Final Destination's Bloodlines movie. So I was super happy to see that those guys, were able to, get a good job out of that. So, like I said, this is the 6th movie of the franchise, and because I am a professional and I had never seen a Final Destination movie,
Not one.
not a single
even-
one.
Okay.
I went back this past week and I watched the first Final Destination movie. Doesn't hold up, as you might be surprised to know. I was not a fan of it, but I did appreciate. I think the story at least is interesting, right? Like the idea that someone has a premonition, someone is able to cheat death with that premonition, and then death comes haunting them, and taking out everyone that was supposed to die. And I think that's at least a fine idea. I don't know how they were able to get like 5 movies out of that, but there you go. So Final Destination Bloodlines is a movie that to my knowledge, other than the appearance of Tony Todd, I don't think it really connects too much to the previous franchise, but
I don't
know.
think so either.
Yeah.
I went back and tried to do a little bit of research too, because I don't think I saw part 5, and I don't remember part 3 or 4. And there's only like one reason I remember part 2. It's kind of weird. They all kind of clash together.
Yeah, and so the plot line for this one is a girl who is away at college continues to be or starts and continues to be plagued by a violent nightmare in which a woman who she believes to be her grandmother basically is killed in this giant accident that happens at like the opening night of a tower, and basically is plagued by this, and then returns home and figures out that her grandmother might be the key to being able to end this, and the family is sort of estranged from this grandmother, and finally what she finds out is that the grandmother, she has inherited basically her grandmother's premonitions, and now the death is now haunting the family tree from this incident that happened. So I'll start by saying that one thing that I think works really well for the movie here is the tone of it. We talked a little bit last time about Clown in a Cornfield, and that was a movie that I said that wasn't like scary enough to be a horror and wasn't funny enough to be like a effective horror comedy. This, I think, is an effective horror comedy in that it is self-aware. It doesn't take itself seriously. It has a really dark sense of humor. There's a couple of, I think, really funny, like legitimately funny, like dark jokes that happen as they go through this experience. I think there's some situations that are darkly comedic in terms of like the kills and stuff like that. So I do think it is effective at balancing the tone. It's also funny to like watch the regular Final Destination and see like the kills in that movie that are like pretty tame in comparison, or like it's someone where like a knife falls on them and then they're like grabbing their chest or something like that. I think there's like a decapitation in there too, but it looks super fake. And to seeing like the kills here, which are just like giant blood splattery explosions of bodies. There's some particularly violent kills with a lot of like CGI blood that I think are effective. The one thing that I feel like is maybe missing out of this one, and I think I'm talking most about the kills because I think the Final Destination franchise has sort of been defined by like people killing themselves in ways that are like could happen to anyone.
Getting killed.
Well, sometimes, I mean, like a lot of it is like accidental, right? And so, but it's happening in like circumstances that you could think could happen to anyone, like a plane crash or a log falling from a tree or a truck, or a variety of different things. And I feel like this one is sort of missing a little bit of the, and I hesitate to use this word entirely, but like a little bit of like the realism that can get attached to it. Like a lot of the stuff that happens in these kills are like really over the top. There's a one in particular scene that happens, I think it's even in the trailer, it happens at like a barbecue that is like way too over the top ridiculous, in my opinion, especially with where it ends up and how it ends up there. And then there's a few other things that happen that just don't seem like it's following that thing. And I think, again, a lot of the horror can come from just like everyday things happening where you're like, oh, this could happen to you or something like that. Or, and I feel like this movie is kind of missing that part of it. That being said, I feel like, even though it does have effective kills, even though it does have a good sense of humor, it is just sort of like pretty standard fare. I mean, I think like the story itself is okay. It's nothing special in terms of like hunting down the family tree and stuff like that. There's some twists in there that might make it slightly interesting. And I think that there's another thing that bothered me. I don't know if it bothered either of you, but like they continue to make this reference of like, well, if you do this or this, like death can't touch you. You're safe from this. And like you can still like die accidentally or through natural causes, right? It's like they're talking like it's going to make them immortal if they just do this one thing. Like death can't find you. Like, well, I mean, like not intentionally and be hunted down by it maybe, but I just was bothered by that fact that like you're not making them immortal here. Like it seemed to like lose that or lose me within that. So anyway, I feel like, the tone works well. The violence works decently well. The kills are good to I mean, I'd say average to good. I mean, I think the opening sequence is well done in terms of like the chaos of everything. And I think Final Destination scenes are kind of known for their intro scenes, I think, right? So like, because even isn't the log scene the intro scene for Final Destination 2? I haven't seen it, but I think that's how it
I
starts.
don't remember, but that's the only thing I do remember from that.
Right.
I don't remember if
I
it comes
thought
at
it
the
was
beginning.
in 1, remember?
Yeah.
So we're talking like, Cody was talking about watching Final Destination 1, and I was like, really? I just remember the log scene. And he was like, well, that's number 2. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so that shows. I literally saw it in the theater when I was like, 18 or 16 years old, however old I was. So
Yeah.
it's a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Even the 5th one came out 2011. Like, wow.
Yeah, almost 15 years ago.
That's
yeah.
crazy. The 5th in the franchise. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it had a nice run there, but yeah. So again, I mean, I think this is like above average studio fare. Is it above average an above average movie? I don't know about that entirely. So Kiko, I'll go ahead and turn to you first. Your thoughts on Final Destination Bloodlines?
Yeah, I think if you're a fan of the series, you're definitely gonna go into this one knowing what you're gonna get and probably liking it because it is one of the better ones that I remember seeing. I don't think a 6th film of a franchise is gonna bring in new fans or viewers. And I will say that like a Saw sequel, you really only have to go into Bloodlines with a bare minimum of knowledge about past movies to understand what's going on, which of course I like. The best part of this new sequel, I think, is the opening sequence, like you just talked about, which is set in the 50s, I believe, and it felt like a kind of like a throwback to the old disaster movies of the 70s, like The Towering Inferno, or maybe even like Earthquake. So I did enjoy the opening sequence a lot. Everything else is pretty much the same as the past movies, besides the fact that they're going after family members in the lineage. So, of course, that, in my opinion, creates a bunch of different problems in the script that only somebody as snobby as me will point out. Why wasn't any of this figured out by any of the other branches of the families that are affected in the opening sequence, right?
That's
I mean,
true.
hundreds
There
of
are a lot
people
of other ones.
died, so there must be tons of these families going through this, right? But, whatever. If you think about it too much, you hurt your brain. So, and then also this girl, the main character, I guess she's like in her 20s because she's in college, maybe 19, 20, 21, wherever. But she has no idea that this horrific tower incident happened, like in the history of this. I don't know if it happened in a town. That was a little bit unclear. If it was in the same town, this tower thing that happened. But like it collapsed and killed hundreds of people, and she has no idea.
It was prevented.
Sorry, it was prevented. You're right. Why did I think? Okay, well, I screwed that part up. So yeah. Anyway, so the I thought the closing sequence
Poor
was
Kiko
pretty.
was watching like this. That's
Yeah, I was
why.
watching through my.
that
I
was
missed
you.
I missed
Yeah.
a big plot part because I was like, okay, well, I was really trying to be distracted a lot during this movie, so yeah, I get it.
Right,
You were
right.
scared, Kiko.
There you
just
go.
like
So the
me.
closing sequence I thought was obvious, and I had to look back because I don't remember. Like I wanted to go back, so I went back to each of the past movies to see how each of them ended because I wanted to make sure like did everybody that was supposed to die, and other than the first movie, because in the first movie not everybody dies, right? There's a couple of people that survive.
Yeah, but I think
In
it ends
Paris.
similarly.
Yeah, so all of them end similarly, where it's very, it's either shown that they die or it's
Implied.
implied that they die, right? I think in the fourth one, like a truck comes through a restaurant, and like then the movie turns into like them as skeletons and shows the skeletons breaking up.
Oh no.
Anyway, it really
That sounds bad.
really corny.
Yeah.
So I thought that this one was kind of interesting the way that it ends, only because there's nothing implied, you just see it, right? So I think it was probably the most graphic of the ones that I saw of all of the past movies. So I thought that was pretty fun in general, just because you don't get to see. I mean, you haven't seen that before in a Final Destination movie where it kind of is pretty disgusting. Of course, in CGI terms, right? So. And then also the scene before that, before the end scene, you kind of knew what was going to happen, or that it wasn't over, because if you got a C in biology, you understand that, that if you get, I don't want to give too much away, but they think that the main character is saved, right? She breaks the curse or whatever. But like I was sitting there, I was like, well, that's not really true. That's not whatever they think happened didn't really happen. Anyway, it comes to fruition that, of course, it's not over, and the end of the movie comes. So, I think that just overall, I think if you really enjoy these types of movies, you're gonna get the same type of cool kills if you think they're cool, and you're gonna kind of just move along through this entire movie in the same way that you did with the rest of them. So I think the Tony Todd thing was a nice send off for him. So I'll give it credit for that. But overall, same old for me.
All right. And Jocelyn, your thoughts on Final Destination Bloodlines?
I bought it hook, line, and sinker. Like everything that y'all are complaining about, I did not give a fuck. I was enjoying myself. I had so much fun. I went in really with low expectations. And I think that they did such a good job of reviving the franchise. And I think that they did it in a way that was surprisingly philosophical. I found a lot of it really philosophical about how, you can live your life with this anxiety knowing that something bad is going to happen, or you can, a lot of the characters like try to, stave off death basically by, surrounding themselves in pillows basically. And Tony Todd, for example, has a really great monologue about that, which I only heard half of because, again, I was really watching through my hands, because I just feel like the tone and the setup of all the deaths were done so well. Like you guys mentioned, the beginning scene, I feel like Cellular would have, wishes they could have done this. It is done so well. I think they even have Easter eggs to the original movies. The license plate on the car when it pulls up is FL818E. So it's flight 180. And I was like, I guarantee that was the flight from the original Final Destination. I Googled it real quick. And of course it was, because it's just like a little callback. And I love that. So yeah, that opening sequence was just, I thought, really... It was exactly what I wish Cellular would have been, and it was done in 15 minutes. And then that was it. Moving on, the pacing was so good. That was just a great way to start the movie. And then here we go. And then
when you say Cellular, what do you mean? What is Cellular?
Or whatever. I'm sorry, not Cellular. The dumb one where she's on the date.
You're talking about Drop?
Oh, Drop.
I couldn't help but compare the two because it's
yeah.
And Drop. I don't even care to remember the name of that movie because it was so bad. And this one did it so perfectly and so much better that it was just in comparison, there's no comparison. So then just heading into the actual storyline, I think they did a great job of keeping things moving. The deaths, I thought, were done. I think that they did a good job of the Rule Goldberg, you do this one thing. And I loved when the barbecue setting, when they're setting it up and it's all the things that you're anxious about. It's yes, okay, the gas. Yeah, that's dangerous. Okay. The trampoline, that's dangerous. All these little things. And you're just setting up for a barbecue in your backyard. And it's those little things that you're just kind of taking notice of.
But the kill itself, though, I mean...
That you're right. I will give you that. Again, I was turning my head a little bit at that exact moment because it was tough. There was one death in the elevator when you talk about the just mess that I really enjoyed. So maybe I should have not averted my eyes because it was
it's just
fun.
A movie.
I know. It's just a lot. It's a lot.
So which
of
one was your
violence.
favorite kill then?
That's a great question. I liked
mine was probably the trash.
That was my favorite too.
Really?
Yeah.
Garbage compactor.
Garbage compactor. Yeah.
No, I really liked that first elevator one. I don't know. I just feel like it set the tone.
That one is good.
Right? It kind of was
there is also
this is you're gonna get a lot of this. Get
there's
prepared.
Also a funny one in the intro as well, involving a piano.
Yes, and of course there's one in a hospital that's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And they're not even.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, the person that has that kill isn't even in line, so it's just random. So it's kind of excellent.
There's a penny thing that's going on in this movie. Does that have anything to do with the other movies or no?
That's what I'm.
I don't know.
I
don't think so in the first one.
Curious because they also carry it through the title sequence or the ending sequence. So I was curious about that. But I love the idea of that because usually pennies are lucky, and so they turned it around and made it just this completely unlucky thing.
Well, and there is a reference to it, I think, and to that idea.
There's a few good kills. I don't know if I have a favorite kill other than the elevator, but I had a few favorite last lines. Like there's a few lines where the person's like in the middle of like giving direction and you aren't expecting it, and or you are, because obviously it's a Final Destination movie. But I feel like they did a great job of keeping me on my toes, and it was never done in a like a gratuitous or in a what's the word I'm looking for, when they make it like not superficial, but when they make it like I guess like mean, or I just feel like it was done in a way that was just like had some heart almost. Like they were gentle. They were gentle with a lot of it. And they kept a lot of, they did a lot of like teasing as far as like, okay, you think it's going to happen and it doesn't. And then when it does happen, you're like, oh man, but it wasn't like super heavy. So I just thought I had a lot of fun. I think that they really balanced the ideas and giving you those good gross out death scenes. So I guess that's where I'm landing on that. It was just like a lot of fun and surprising, and man, I hope they do more. I'll go to more like this one for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into final thoughts and grades. So yeah, I think for me, I think there's a lot that works, which is primarily in the tone, a majority of the kills themselves, and kind of, I think, its sense of self-awareness, its sense of character. Like there's like distinct characters, like they aren't just sort of like one-dimensional, which I think is a plus. I mean, you've got, a really sarcastic one. You have one of the siblings feels like a character from like a 90s horror movie to me. I don't like, he felt like he could have been in the first Final Destination one. And I just like that they are at least, like moderately defined. Almost, I think the secondary characters are more interesting than the primary ones. And I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. And like I said, I think, we watched Clown in a Cornfield last week, a movie that I feel like doesn't have memorable kills, doesn't have the right tone, and I feel like this one gets both of those right. And I feel like if we were grading on a curve, in comparing this to other like studio horror or bigger budget horror, I would say that it is above average in comparison to those. As a standalone, I don't know that it quite gets to the point where I can like wholeheartedly recommend it. So I'm going to leave this here at a C+. I think it's a near miss. I don't think that it's all that far off, but just I wish there was something a little bit more creative or memorable about it, and in its story, or that it did something that I felt was like different or unique aside from just like some witty one-liners and some decent secondary characters. So C+ for me, just misses. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
I was just thinking about when you're talking is how much I didn't even think about this till right now, is that not all the characters in this one, they all look like regular people. And I'm thinking about like the last few, like all of them are like supermodels, like just really attractive, like teenagers that are getting, bludgeoned to death. So I thought that was interesting that, it's just like an everyday person that you would see on the street, I think, or just like you said, like real characters. So for me, Bloodlines, it tries to, it tries its best to give the entire Final Destination franchise a fresh take. But, when you've seen one character die of blunt force trauma, I think you've seen them all. So I'm going to give this a very nice C+ as well.
All right. And Jocelyn.
I'm glad you mentioned the characters, because I think that also really carries it through, like really kind of keeps you on board, is that the characters are really well defined. And I don't think they are secondary characters. Like they are a part of the story, like this cousin group. And I think each of them is really interesting. And man, that poor mom, like I'm not going to give any spoilers, but that's what I was thinking on the way home.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Wife.
I was thinking the way, man, that's a lot of coffin money.
Yeah, I think a lot of her kids, like they're each like really well played. I think that they really keep this movie afloat, and I had a lot of fun, so I'm going to give it a B.
All right. So we will go ahead and move on to the next film, Friendship. Friendship is a movie that was written and directed by Andrew D. Young, and it stars Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd, as well as Kate Mara. And it is a pretty simple plot line here. which is suburban dad Craig falls hard for his charismatic new neighbor as Craig's attempts to make an adult male friend threaten to ruin both of their lives. So it's a movie about Craig Robinson's character, who
Tim Robinson.
Well, I mean, all Tim Robinson characters are very
you said
similar.
Craig Robinson.
What?
I think
Did
you
I?
said Craig Robinson.
No, his character's name is Craig.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Trying to trip me up.
Tim Robinson's character.
Tim Robinson's character in the movie, basically, really wants to be friends with Paul Rudd, and it starts going well until it starts not going well, and it's sort of like a lot of people have compared it to like I Love You Man, but really this is like Banshees of Inisherin, which is the Paul Rudd's character decides he doesn't want to be friends anymore, and Tim Robinson's character just sort of unravels after that. So this is a movie I saw at South by Southwest a couple of months ago, and I had a really great time at the screening. It was at the Paramount Theater, and people were just kind of losing their minds, laughing at most everything that was going on, and so I wanted to rewatch it, and so I watched it again today. And I will preface it by saying this. I cannot imagine anyone who doesn't find Tim Robinson funny enjoying this whatsoever. Because
okay, sorry.
This is like peak Tim Robinson. And so I don't think this is going to convert anyone who doesn't like his style or brand of humor or doesn't find him funny. If you do find him funny, and if you do like, I Think You Should Leave, his Netflix show, I think you're in for a treat here. Tim Robinson was an SNL cast member, didn't really pop. They moved him to a writer, and he left short after, did some other projects, and then had the Netflix show, I Think You Should Leave. And I don't know if either of you have watched or do watch it, but it's just really absurd and weird and funny, and he's completely cranked up to 10 all of the time. And like I said, his characters are mostly the same, but it's all a very similar. He knows one speed, and it's a really funny one. And this movie feels like it is like an extension of I Think You Should Leave, which is interesting because like Andrew DeYoung, the writer and director, is not a part of that show, but it captures that entirely, where you have just kind of like a socially awkward guy who like cannot stop himself from making his situation worse and worse and worse, and then he just keeps on digging himself a deeper and deeper hole, and is completely oblivious about it, which is like a hallmark of Tim Robinson's humor. The movie is kind of like I would say occasionally like surrealist, but really absurd and silly at times. And I think has some like non sequitur stuff. It takes some like interesting turns. I think that a lot of humor can be found in just simple facial expressions from Tim Robinson, or him being exasperated. He gets laughs from the smallest of things. If again you find him to be really funny, and I think that it's interesting to watch the movie because Paul Rudd is a very like, you think this is going to be like a buddy movie maybe, but Paul Rudd is really not all that in it. He's a very secondary character. This is a Tim Robinson movie for sure, and there's just so many just very small funny touches to it. It has what I believe to be the funniest drug trip scene of all time. That
I wish you hadn't spoiled that. I feel
No,
like
I didn't spoil anything.
No, you
well,
told
I actually
me.
told you.
You told me, and
yeah.
I feel like I would have like not ever imagined that. I want to know. I wish I knew what I would have reacted, how I would have reacted if I hadn't known.
I have to say, I have been thinking about that scene for 2 months. It is so goddamn funny.
You know the joke I'm obsessed with. So
Yeah.
there's another part of the movie. It's really small, and I guess that's not to interrupt you, but just
Oh, no,
it's
go
a
ahead.
testament to the comedy. Is like there's at least one thing that is gonna really just like stick with you.
Yeah, and it might be a dialogue, it might be a piece of dialogue, it might be a facial expression, it might be there's some good physical comedy that happens in it, but it's just really joke dense, and I think that's the kind of thing where Yeah, and if we're talking about comedies, I think one thing that I think is, like joke volume, or how often there is a joke, or your laughs per minute thing. It's been a while, I think, since I've seen a comedy that has that is like this consistently funny throughout, that has a joke like every few, couple of seconds or every minute or whatever. It just stays really consistent throughout. And again, like the absurdist stuff works really, really well. Like I said, the drug trip scene I've been thinking about for a couple of months. There's a couple of other things that I won't spoil, but yeah, it's just a movie that I have a really good time with. I know that the common complaint about it was that maybe it stretched a little too thin. I don't really know that I agree with that entirely. It's like an hour 40, and I think it's totally fine. I don't know that it has like anything particularly interesting to say about male friendships. I think that like that's the one thing that's maybe left a little bit on the table, which is like in any kind of commentary it has on male friendships or friendship in general. It's just going for, I think, straight laughs, and when it does, I think it's like as successful as you'll find. I think this is one of the funniest movies that you'll probably see this year, and one of the funniest movies I've certainly seen in a while. So. Yeah, I could talk about individual jokes all day. There's a great, I don't know if either of you know who Connor O'Malley is, but he has a quick cameo and has a really funny line that he's not even on camera for, but he plays the war vet that gives the speech
yes.
at the party.
I could tell he was someone from the people around me's reaction. I was in a theater with Tim Robinson fans. You could tell.
That's what happened at South by Southwest. He appeared on screen, and like the entire theater started already laughing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like he has a really funny cameo. I think Kate Mara is really funny in it, and she kind of plays the straight role in it. But like there's some really funny things with like her relationship with her son that I think plays for laughs. So yeah, I mean, above all else, this movie is just really, really funny. So Jocelyn, I'll go ahead and go to you.
Yeah, I don't know if I find this type of humor like laugh out loud funny, but I will agree that as far as like jokes per minute, there is something constantly happening. And literally, I told Cody from the first, like he didn't even say a word yet, and people were already laughing at Tim Robinson because he is just like a funny person. Like he's on this screen, and it's like everyone was laughing. And then his first line was very funny.
Yeah,
and it wasn't the joke about the orgasms; it was about he
just said something like, "You're gonna beat this." And
that's
line.
That's what it was. It was the wife is in remission, and she's like saying all the anxieties about whether it's gonna come back, and he says like, it's not going to come back. Yeah. And it's just from that moment forward, you're just on board on his weird journey because there's just something about him. And so I will say, like, jokes per minute, I was laughing so hard. There's even little things, so I can tell how this is going to be maybe a cult classic. There's a part where he's, like, talking to people who are potentially going to purchase his house, and he's like, great neighbors, this one, and then he kind of gestures at one and doesn't say anything, and nobody laughed. And I was like, that's hysterical. Like, clearly that neighbor sucks, but he just kind of, like, moving on. And it's, like, a little moment where I'm like, man, there are so many jokes in this movie. But I will say that the parts that I did actually laugh at were when he wasn't the butt of the joke, because I feel like it's so very clearly like he is the butt of the joke. But I really liked it when they kind of flipped it, and when Paul Rudd was kind of in a vulnerable position and Tim Robinson was kind of like being a good friend. That is when I really enjoyed this movie, and there's like two moments in particular where that happens that I was like, yes, I love this. I want more of this. I want him to not always just be the one that's like being made fun of for being an insanely awkward and cringy person, but he does that so well that I'm not going to fault it for that. And I will say that I did think that it did drag slightly. I feel like there was a part of the movie where I was like, all right, let's kind of get this going a little bit. But then I will say immediately it was kind of like the resolution of the movie. And one of my favorite jokes happened after that at the end about a character's name that I don't know. There was so much happening in that moment that I really didn't appreciate it. And then like later I was like walking to my car and I was like kind of giggling to myself about that joke. So I feel like that is what this movie does well. It's like even things that you don't even realize are jokes, you'll be like thinking about later, and you'll be like, God, that was so dumb and so funny. It's so dumb. And I'm familiar with him. I have seen some sketches. I feel like I take him with a little bit of grain of salt. I'm not like a devout Tim Robinson person, but I do find occasionally some of his sketches to be really brilliant and funny. And man, he's just like, there's no one doing it like him right now. There have been people who have done it before, but he's definitely like top 5 of this cringy, awkward, weird comedian people that's out right now. So that's what I'll say about that.
All right. Kiko, your thoughts on Friendship?
Yeah, just real quick before I get into my thoughts, would you consider Tim Robinson like in the same vein or in the same, you called him top 5 maybe of that type of character or comedian, like Nathan Fielder, right? I mean, he would be in the same kind of...
Definitely. And I'm glad you're talking about this, because even I was trying to rack my brain, because I feel like I've seen even movies like this. Like maybe like there's like Todd Solondz's movies that are kind of like this.
True, like Happiness.
Yes, yeah. Like they make you feel so uncomfortable. I think Todd Solondz is less comedic and it's more dramatic. But just there's definitely people who have done this style before. Right. But he's definitely in a sort of league of his own as far as like comedic.
Welcome
but yeah,
to
maybe
the
Nathan
Dollhouse.
Fielder.
Did you ever see Welcome to the Dollhouse?
Yeah,
like
that. Exactly. Nathan Fielder. Maybe Tom Green. Good old Tom Green.
Oh yeah, Tom Green. I got a lot of that
Similar,
from this as well.
Yeah, just silly and dumb but fun. Anyway.
But again, I mean, all these comedians that we're talking about, they're it just depends on how on board you get, right? Some people don't find any of this funny at all.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to me because this is my first big dose of Tim Robinson. When Cody told me that he saw it at South by, I was like, I mean, I had heard the name before, but so I think you sent me like a couple of clips, and that's basically all I've gotten out of Tim Robinson. I didn't see the TV show or anything like that. So I came into this pretty, actually when it probably was playing, there was like short clips of Tim Robinson stuff at the Draft House that was showing.
That's nice.
So, you kind of got into it. I guess it was for people that are like, okay, well, let me get these people ready for what they're about to see. So I went in without much background on the type of dark comedy that he delivers. So again, I don't think everybody gets this sense of humor. When I went in there and I'm sitting around people, and I'm not a big proponent of the theatrical experience, which is another whole other thing we can talk about, but I just felt like as we were laughing through this film, like I felt like, man, I'm surrounded by my people, right? Like these are like people that I get or that are on the same wavelength as me when it comes to comedy. Because I thought most of everything that he did on screen was hilarious. The cringe factor was on full display. He gets in his way, kind of like more in a mainstream. If you think about mainstream movies, I kept thinking about Meet the Parents, where he gets in the way of himself and he just can't stop and he just keeps going and going. The male bonding stuff was okay. I was very, very surprised at how little, like Cody just said, little that Paul Rudd was in the movie. I mean, I thought that I think I went in there thinking that this friendship was going to go a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden, like, I mean, they spent like maybe a day, which is kind of funnier because it took him that quick to realize that he's not going to really fit into this friend group that he has.
And it's just like, and I think it's referenced too, because one of the funniest lines of the movie is when their sort of breakup is happening, and Tim Robinson just says, "You accepted me way too fast."
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what I said. I told you, Paul Rudd love bombed him. That was typical love bombing behavior on Paul Rudd's fault. That's why.
But don't we always get upset at movies that kind of do that, where you get too quickly involved or the relationship happens too fast? So I really like that it stops it from happening like right away. Like and at first I was kind of thrown back by like, oh wait a minute, I thought this was going to at least go like half an hour before he breaks up with him, but it went pretty fast. So I as I was kept on watching it, I that made more sense of why he did it, and especially because Paul Rudd, I mean, he's funny in this movie, but he also I think plays a little bit of a straight man as well, like going in when Tim Robinson's character does something crazy, he's kind of like pretty shocked at what's happening on screen. Like he doesn't like make too many jokes. Like he's almost like he wants to make sure that nothing gets out of control. I found him doing that a lot. Like, okay, let's just breathe here before he digs himself deeper, and then it kind of like. But then, of course, he says something stupid, and it just keeps going. So, but I agree with you. The drug scene, I couldn't stop laughing at the drug scene, and I think it made me laugh even more because I was like, because I've seen these movies before where like somebody eats a mushroom or
Yeah.
does something, and then it could go so many different ways, right? So as this happening or as it's gonna happen, I'm like, okay, this movie's already crazy enough. What's gonna happen? What are they gonna do? Is everybody gonna turn animated? Is anything that what's gonna happen? That's gonna just be totally nuts. Sorry. And then what happens. And I couldn't stop laughing. And I'm still laughing about it because it's just such a funny joke.
Yeah.
That one scene just made the whole movie for me. And
Same.
That's where I am with friendship. I think Tim Robinson, he made a new fan. Yeah, definitely.
You're gonna check out his show.
I mean, yeah, probably.
It's worth it. The episodes are 15 minutes long. So
I think that, and I feel like the sketches are even better because it's like able to do it so like so weird because they have such a short amount of time.
Right.
They can go even further than the movie did, which had to kind of I think really kind of draw that line.
Right. Yeah. And it was just so funny, just listening to people like laughing, like the scene where he takes the drug scene. I'll just leave it. There's a part where he's just looking at is it a fire?
It's a smoke detector.
Smoke detector. I don't know what happened. Like it's just the people because everybody's like really tense at that point, and then his image passes by. Remember that part?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And everybody like gasped in the theater. And I don't know why, but that gasp, whoever did it, a couple of people, the whole theater just
started laughing.
Like, I don't know what they were thinking. They were thinking like I was thinking, like something freaking insane is about to happen.
They were
maybe they were high, yeah.
They were super duper high.
Yeah, I have to admit that everybody in Bloodlines as well was high too. So that has the same, even though they're different, probably different comedic senses that are going into those movies. Both of them are high.
Yeah. Well, let's get into final thoughts and grades. So, yeah, I mean, for me, again, it's just a purely funny movie, and I think and by the way, I wrote a written review for this out of South by, so if anyone wants to go to CineSnob.net in the Cineblog section, you can check it out. If there's anyone out there who's a fan of I Think You Should Leave and you're worried at all that a studio wouldn't understand his humor or this is a sanitized or watered down version of it, fear not. This is like pure Tim Robinson by a writer and director that completely understands why he's funny and lets him do what he's going to do. We're describing a lot of his humor, and again, it is an acquired taste to some degree. It's not subtle at all. It's very loud. It's very like animated. It's in your face, but not like I don't personally find it to be abrasive, and I think that's where like sometimes loud can turn into abrasive, and I think this is just like completely silly and ridiculous. The joke volume here is really great. I don't, again, not a minute or two passes without something like truly funny happening in it. I do wish there was a little bit more on like the bromance side of things, but I think this is the funniest movie of the year so far. I'm going to go ahead and, I gave it a B+ out of South by Southwest. I think I'm going to knock it down to a B. I think just a couple of things, nitpicks there, but I'm still going to land on a really solid B for this one. Jocelyn, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I thought that it was just perfectly cringy and fun, and even sort of the pacing, I think, sort of maybe made it drag a little, but I still enjoyed the ride. And I don't know. I don't know where he can go from this. I'm excited to see what he does next. I'm just like, the sky's the limit. I can't even imagine. Almost like that drug trip. Like anything I can think of, it'll be the exact opposite because he's just got this wild mind, and we got to enjoy it for an hour and a half. So that was nice. I'm kind of struggling with what I want to give it though. I mean, it's an incredibly well-made movie, and I really enjoyed a lot of it. And I want to do an A-.
All right.
Yeah.
A-. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I'm with you on the bromance. I would have liked to see Paul Rudd and him interact a little bit more. The scene in the aqueducts, we didn't talk about that at all, but it was funny, but I don't know what it was about Kate Mara and that kind of threw me for a loop, or it didn't feel like it was the same character that she was playing throughout the whole thing. but yeah, the film overall just feels like a platform for only Tim Robinson to shine, right? He's this awkward star in his cringy movie and doesn't waste a second of it. So I am on board with Tim Robinson, whatever he wants to do next, and I'm giving this a solid B as well.
All right. We will go ahead and move on to our final film, Deaf President Now. Deaf President Now is a documentary that is on Apple TV Plus currently, and it is a documentary about something that happened over the course of 8 days in 1988 at Gallaudet University, which is a university or college for the deaf and hearing impaired. And basically, there was sort of like they were hiring or electing whatever a new president for the university, and there were a certain qualified candidates, many of them that were deaf, and they ended up hiring a hearing candidate and as president. And after years and years of being promised that there would be a deaf president someday or at some point, the students of the university decided they had had enough and decided to start rallying, boycotting, protesting, and starting a movement to reverse this decision and ultimately get a deaf president of the university. And so this still tells the story of the sort of movement and campaign that went into those 8 days of trying to get this decision reversed. So I saw this at Sundance back in January, and I feel like it's a story that I wasn't. Well, actually, I was aware of it. You know how I was aware of it is that earlier in the week at Sundance, I had watched a Marlee Matlin documentary. Where this is referenced, because she, I think, that late in the late stages, like came in and started talking on behalf of it and was like it's not referenced in this documentary, but she apparently platformed it from her side of things as a celebrity, and then that's how I first found out about it, and then I watched this. So a story that happened that I wasn't super aware of, and basically the movie is framed through four students. And sort of like their recollections and memories done through like talking head interviews, as well as archival footage from that time, from the scene, from TV, and kind of telling the story. And I feel like the story itself is a pretty powerful story about like, again, like speaking up for your rights and also advocating for representation, and a lot of it is about sort of like the plight of deaf people, and sort of there's a lot of in these talking heads of these subjects, talking about their upbringings, their they were college students in 1988, so they were presumably born in like the late 60s. And so, hearing about what it was like to grow up as deaf back then, and, hearing about, in particular, having it seen as this some kind of, disability, and that they, tried to have them conform to the hearing world, and, trying to put them in speech therapy classes instead of, trying to adapt to them and teach them, and all this other stuff, seeing, how, it wasn't just about the presidency of this university, but it was, years and years and decades of fighting for this. And I found it like particularly compelling hearing them. A lot of them had stories of like their earlier generations of parents and grandparents, and how they dealt with the situation, and how they just decided to either take it or to be seen in the background and stuff like that, and how this generation was completely different. I like that the interview subjects seem to have like distinct personalities, and I think that I like how like one person in particular seems to still have like grudges or intense feelings about kind of like what happened, and sort of like who took the leadership roles and all of that stuff. And so again, I think that the story itself is really powerful. I think it's told pretty well. I think it's nicely directed. I like, some of the, it does some nice like reenactment type stuff. I feel like it's edited nicely with the archival footage, and it pulls a lot of really great stuff. And again, like I said, I think that the interview subjects are compelling. And I think it's just a nice, important story that's told. And like I said, a powerful story. Here's the thing though. So, I could not remember if I had graded this before, so I went back to my Letterboxd, and when I was in my Letterboxd, prior to rewatching this movie today, I came across this guy who wrote a review, and I was just like kind of reading through other people's reviews and just scrolling or whatever. And this person, I wish I remember who it was. I think it was Scott Renshaw. I read an excerpt, and he made a comment about a decision that's made directorially in the movie, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't really remember that. And then I watched the movie, and it was all I could think about. And so here's the thing: is that all of the interview subjects or the main characters are deaf, like completely deaf, and they are using sign language to communicate. All of them have some kind of interpreter speaking their signs as like, how they're being seen. So basically, like the way that they're communicating is not through signing and subtitles. It is through a voiceover providing the translation. And I really hate this decision that they made here. And I think that in a movie that spends in a quite substantial chunk of it talking about what I mentioned earlier about how, like for so long, deaf people were kind of forced to conform to this hearing world and had to try to fit in and do all that stuff. It just feels like such a weird decision to then not let them speak for themselves and have subtitles. They talk about the importance of closed caption for, a news interview that they did, and they talk about, representation and having, like I said, not, forcing them into like the hearing world in terms of like classrooms and in speech therapy and all this other stuff. And for me, it really undercut the message and the power of the film by making this decision to have like someone, speak for them basically. And it's a clear directorial decision. Like, and again, I get that like there's some audio stuff that happens just in terms of like, when they are expressing something, occasionally like the voiceover will drop out and they'll just let the person express or something like that. But again, that feels like it's using it for like dramatic, like using audio or sound for dramatic effect. And that also rubbed me the wrong way. So I could not get over this decision. And it feels like a decision that is egregious enough to like affect my final thought on the film overall. So again, a powerful message, mostly well told, but with a decision there that I couldn't kind of gloss over. So Kiko, I'll go ahead and go to you.
Yeah, I commend you for noticing that. I didn't at all.
I didn't until I read that review, to be honest.
Yeah, till you told me about it. And I guess it kind of is a little bit weird. I looked up a little bit more on that. I do think I would overlook something like that, just because one reason is because it's co-directed by a deaf person, Niall DeMarco. So he had to have some kind of decision-making opportunities on this, whether or not he thought it was a good idea or a bad idea to do this. And then of course, I think, like you talked about, I think a lot of the sound design that they use really makes what they're talking about, the importance of it, get across a lot of the time. So I'm not part of the deaf community, of course, but I'm assuming that a story like this is important enough to them to kind of like overlook something like that. But I don't know, maybe not. I could see some people, realizing or understanding or thinking that they kind of undercut the message a little bit if that's what they did. But overall, I knew nothing about this university before going into this film. So learning that there was an actual civil rights movement that I was completely unaware of after 45 years on this earth was a little surprising to me. So, this event This event was really instrumental in the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I think in the film it said it was like only 2 years later that that act passed. So not knowing that only proves that all this history or all history is not held in the same regard, which in my opinion proves the point of a documentary like this. So I've never protested anything in my life, even if I believe in it strongly, which I don't know why. It's just, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but so watching these young students put everything they had into it was really remarkable from a viewer perspective. I mean, this is like the epitome of what social activism is and what they're able to do through this. I mean, they closed the whole school down. I mean, it's just crazy that they had so much power and you could see it happening. Like when I was thinking about it as I'm watching, I'm like, these kids these students are gonna win because there's no way around this. Like they can just like decide on their future through these things that they're doing right now. Which also got me thinking, like, why don't more universities allow the students to elect their president? I would think that would make more sense, right? To kind of give them the voice that they need to decide where the future of their school is going to go. So again, whenever a documentary shows me something in this type of fascinating light that I have never heard of before, I just I'm on board, and I learned a lot. I thought the archival footage was amazing. I think that the quote unquote villain of the story wasn't overdone, but she was one of those characters that was just like, the OG Karen. And so I thought that was fascinating as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed this doc, and I can see it probably getting some recognition at the end of the year. If I would say one of the co-directors, he won an Oscar for An Inconvenient Truth. So he's up there right now. So that's what I thought of this doc.
All right, and Jocelyn.
I don't know. Okay, so I loved everything that I learned about the deaf community from it. I didn't know about this happening, and I do love that the students stood their ground and everything. I just think that it was really like there was no punches. Like I knew exactly everything that was going to happen, even without knowing the story, sort of. So it was like an interesting topic, but I don't think there was like many surprises. And also, I thought that maybe it was edited or done in a way that was almost a little cheesy, as far as like when they were student protesting, they were playing like Fight the Power and things like that, where I was like, this is a little too on the nose for my taste. Like, I wish they had done it in a way that was a little more subtle. But that's not to say it wasn't great, and I loved learning all about it. I just think that as far as like...
the directorial choices, like Cody was talking about.
They felt a little amateurish and a little like working against the severity or the gravitas of the actual content and what the movie was about. So those are my only complaints. But other than that, I loved the characters, quote unquote, the real people. Like, it's like almost like Boys State, Cody, that doc, where like the people were like, you couldn't have cast them better. And their stories were incredible, and it was a really good story. But like I said, I just feel like it wasn't really like large enough, I think, to merit like a full length all this movie. And I think that they sort of tried to make it seem more dramatic just because they wanted a good story. It felt like they were overcompensating. That was the feeling that I got from this documentary. But I get that because it's a real story, so they only have to go with what happened. And yeah, they had a great villain also. The original Karen, she sucked.
Yeah, I thought it was a little repetitious at points as well. I think I'll agree with you on that, where it kind of slowed down for me because it was kind of saying or repeating the same thing over and over again. But yeah.
All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and get to final thoughts and grades. Yeah. So again, for me, I think that the story itself is powerful. I really like when you get to have, people tell their own side of history, and so having the people like so heavily involved in it get to tell their story. I always really like in a documentary, and I think this does it well. I think the talking head interviews are really well done. I feel like they get to express themselves, quite a lot. And I think just in terms of like a powerful story of activism and protest for people with with disabilities, I think is a really great story. Again, there's directorial decisions that I feel like undercut its messaging that I was not able to look over. I feel like this movie, as it stands, is probably at a B, but I think, like I said, that decision was egregious enough for me to knock this down to a B minus. So Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, overall, I think the film highlights the importance of fighting for systematic change in an inspirational and very educational way. So I thought the archival footage was really compelling, and the interviews with the students, specifically those 4 that we're talking about, are heartfelt and very fascinating. So I'm giving this a very solid B.
All right, and Jocelyn.
I echo everything you guys say, but I'm gonna have to do a B minus.
Okay. All right. And that's going to do it for this week. So next week, we have a couple of, as I mentioned, IP things coming through, which is Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, the final film of the Mission Impossible franchise. We also have Lilo and Stitch, the live-action hybrid movie. I have never seen Lilo and Stitch, the animated version.
It's fine. Stitch is amazing, though, as a character.
I'm going to watch it this week, much to my chagrin. But I do want to have the context, especially since these Disney live-action remakes tend to suck. So
they have, yeah, you're right. Are you going to go back and watch all the Mission Impossibles too?
No, I will not be doing that. I have seen 1, 3, and then everything like Brad Bird on. So I just haven't seen 2. That's the only one I haven't seen. Oh, no, you know what? I haven't seen 1. I've seen 3 on. That's what I've seen. I haven't seen 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and watch the first Reckoning. What is it called?
Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning. So that's the only one I haven't seen. I missed it. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be important to end the Reckoning.
Well, it's funny because it's called Dead Reckoning Part 1. And then they renamed this to The Final Reckoning, so there's no part 2. But and then we have a couple of streamer movies. We have Fountain of Youth on Apple TV Plus. This is a Guy Ritchie movie starring Natalie Portman, to Jocelyn's surprise, and John Krasinski. Guy Ritchie, a super prolific director these last few years. He's made a ton of stuff. And then we also maybe potentially, but don't quote us on this, might have a Shudder movie called The Surrender. If you want to reach out to us, find us at our brand new shiny website, CineSnob.net. And there's a contact button there if you have thoughts. You can also find us on our social media, CineSnob. Just look it up on Facebook, X, TikTok. Kiko's running the Truth Social account, so you can find us there. Also, if you happen to have a spare second and you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, leave us that 5-star rating. That's always super helpful. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get those numbers up. And Kiko, I saw that you have a nice interview there with Tom Segura that's doing pretty well on our YouTube page.
Yeah, I lucked out. I don't know, because I haven't seen too many Tom Segura interviews specifically for his new show, A Bad Thought. So I think I just lucked out and they said yes to me. So yeah, Tom Segura's up there. I'll be having some other TV interviews this week, so look out for those.
All right. And aside from that, I think that's it. Anyone have anything else to add? Speak now.
No.
All right. Then that's going to do it. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.